la 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 la. La 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 la. La la. Behind me see my tears fall down. So many things have happened. The years go by and the friends you have for no more. Jealousy and envy. Wow, because you keep on grinding. People wanna see you fail, and although you fall, just move on. Crabs in a barrel. Want what you have, try to pull you down. Don't wanna work, just wanna take. They also pay it. Hate on me. The more you hate, I'll get lifted. Hate on me. The more you hate, I'll get lifted. La 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 la. La 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 la. La la la. People come, people go. Where they at, I don't know. Liabilities, your creativity, assets I need. They give energy, but every now and then, the ones you think are real turn out to be sneaky snakes. You gotta laugh to keep from crying. Can't let things get me down. Put a smile on my face, stay in my lane, finish the race.
Hate on me. Guess what? The more you hate, I'll get lifted. I love that song. I love that song. I love that song. Hey, everybody out there in Facebook land. And like I always say, I can envision y'all out there saying, hey, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Let me tell you, lately here, it's been a lot of different things on my mind. And I've been researching life in general, our history, because one important thing to me has always been understanding why we suffer from the condition we do as African Americans. There's nothing against, Caucasian Americans that I know, but it's so stupid because even at the very roots of things, if you're African, of African descent, living in America, you are called African American. If you are Indian living in America, to make the distinction, it'll be American Indian, you know what I mean? Or Indian American if you're not. Every label that we have as cultures and stuff, it's ridiculous because we have these titles that come before and after. But if you are Caucasian living in America, you are American. And I'm sure people say Caucasian. Hey, Mary. Hey, Jessica. How y'all doing today? I want to say what's up to Stephanie Lachelle as well. And so one of the big things that's been on my mind lately here, and one of the big things that I feel that I need to start sharing, I need y'all to start sharing these videos as well, is these important things. The making of a slave. And I'm talking, of course, about Willie Lynch and the Willie Lynch letter, the speech that Willie Lynch made in 1712 in Virginia on the banks of the James River. He made this speech, and he was a plantation owner from Britain. And he had plantations in the West Indies. And I want to start breaking this down. I want us to rap about this because this is really important. And this has had me in the show. It's kind of been holding me still in life. I haven't really been able to think about anything else, do anything else. I've been dreaming about this. I've been thinking about this. What is stopping us as a community? Why do we keep doing the things that we do to each other? I just had an incident at my property, my home that I own, where there was some extra land that was on the side of my property, but the fence to my property, had kind of divided it. But little did I know that the land was mine. I found out that the land was mine. And so I decided to build a fence around it to stop people from parking on it, stop people from dumping on it. They would dump their trash and everything. The piece of land is so large that people would have, like in the summertime, would cut the grass down. Some have little parties over there. I decided to fence it in. And my neighbors, not all of them, but some of them took issue with it. They called the city on me, everything else. I spent a pretty good penny fencing that in. I don't know if y'all know how much a fence costs, but let me tell you, it ain't cheap. And the labor ain't cheap. You know what I mean? So going back and forth with the city, and I talked to one person who had an issue with it, and I explained to them that I owned that. It's on my deed, is what I said. They said to me, well, that's impossible. This Chinese man owned that. And I was like, what? I was like, yeah, a Chinese man owned that. Well, how do you know that, was my question. And the answer was mind-boggling. He came down here and cut the grass one day a couple years ago and told us he owned it. So you have your neighbor who's been living here for about 3+ years who's telling you that you own this land. And then you have a Asian American who came into the community that you're saying you saw cut the grass, who told you he owned it. And you're taking that man's word. You don't even know him. You don't see him on a regular basis. You don't see him every day. And what person in their right mind spends thousands of dollars to fence in something that doesn't belong to them? But it all reminded me of this. Like, why is it that I'm trying to do better for myself, and in a sense, you're trying to hold me back? So here you go. This is the thing that's been on my mind. This is Mr. Willie Lynch's letter, and I don't know if you've ever heard it or read it, but I'm going to read it to you. It's pretty short. But as I read these words to you, if you can do me a favor, if you're not driving, if you're sitting at home and the kids are quiet, or if you just chilling out, getting ready to take yourself a hot bath, just turn your volume up, close your eyes, and I want you to hear these words. It is imperative that you hear these words. It's imperative that you hear these words so we can have an interactive conversation this evening. Greetings, gentlemen. I greet you here on the banks of the James River in the first year of our Lord 1712. First, I shall thank you, the gentlemen of the colony of Virginia, for bringing me here. I am here to help you solve some of your problems with slaves. Your invitation reached me on my modest plantation in the West Indies, where I have experimented with some of the newest and still the oldest methods for control of slaves. Ancient Rome would envy us if my program is implemented. As our boat sailed south on the James River, named for our illustrious king, whose version of the Bible we cherish, I saw enough to know that your problem is not unique. While Rome used cords of wood as crosses for standing human bodies along its highways in great numbers, you are here using the tree and the rope on occasions. I caught the whiff of a dead slave hanging from a tree a couple miles back. You're not only losing valuable stock by hangings, you're having uprisings. Slaves are running away. Your crops are sometimes left in the fields for too long. For maximum profit, you suffer social, occasional fires. Your animals are killed. Gentlemen, you know what your problems are. I do not need to elaborate. I'm not here to enumerate your problems. I am here to introduce you to a method of solving them. In my bag here, I have a foolproof method for controlling your black slaves. I guarantee every one of you that if installed correctly, it will control the slaves for at least 300 years. My method is simple. Any member of your family or your overseer can use it. I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it's there only because it starts with an A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, sizes of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slave lives in the valley, on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. I need to emphasize that. I'm going to say that again. I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust and envy, stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slaves, after receiving this introduction, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male and the male versus the female. You must also have white servants and overseers who distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. Gentlemen, these kits are your keys to control. Use them. Have your wives and children use them. Never miss an opportunity. If used intensely for 1 year, the slaves themselves will remain perpetually distrustful. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. I had to put that out there first and foremost. I had to put that conversation out there. That letter had to come out there first and foremost. Because what I'm about to talk about with you all, and I'm going to talk about this for a couple weeks, so make your mind up now. Whether you want to listen to me, whether you don't, is trivial. Just because you don't acknowledge it, it doesn't make it a lie. It doesn't make it a falsehood. It doesn't make it a fallacy. You see, what we need to understand is for all the men who are listening, I'm going to address you first. So just like dealing with a woman who you feel have issues and have been damaged, and the way that she treats you may feel disrespectful or distrustful. She might not let you be the head of the house. She might, have all these little crazy rules in place based off of the hurt and pain that she's felt in her life. Guess what? If you tell her that, she won't see no wrong in what she's doing because she doesn't necessarily realize that she's doing it. But because you're on the outside looking in, it's easy for you to see. You see the damage, you see the daddy issues. And women, just talking to you right now, when you're dealing with that male who for some reason just can't get it right, who for some reason has to constantly run, for some reason just chasing the street life, even well into their 30s, just chasing something that they will never catch. But you say something to them, but they will never see any wrong with it. Because to them, it's justified, it's right. This is what we do. Realize this, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Everything that happens, it has a cause. But not only does it have a cause, it has an effect. Cause and effect is very important with all of this. Very, 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 very important. Now, what you got to realize is this. This whole country, this whole planet, it runs off of a monetary system. And so much like the textile company with clothes and stuff like that, that's their inventory and everything. Slaves were inventory. And so the difference between human beings and animate and inanimate objects is inanimate objects. If you fold a shirt, it's going to be folded. If you put it in a box, it'll be put in a box. It won't fight you back. It doesn't give you attitude. It doesn't give you anything. But when your stock is human beings, when your stock is human beings who think, who feel, who care, You have to find an effective way to control that. Let me tell you something. I'm not saying it was right or wrong. Well, I am saying it was wrong. But what I'm going to tell you about Mr. Willie Lynch, he was a fucking genius. Just like freaking Hitler. Hitler was a genius. What they did was atrocious, committed all types of atrocities. But what I always say, honestly, can you blame the person who enacts something that the world falls for, that the world follows in suit for, that makes them rich and beyond their wildest dreams? Can you look down on a person who actually creates a plan, put it into effect, and it affects so many people even well after they're gone? Well after they're gone. He said his method was self-refueling, which in reality means that once you start it, you don't have to do nothing else. It's like a pendulum. If you start the pendulum swinging, you never have to touch it again. As long as it is not disturbed, it will keep on swinging forever with no motor, no anything. With nobody blowing on it, pushing on it, creating any maintenance to it, it will spin eternally. So this man figured out a way to break us. Let that sink in. For all of us individuals out here, let it sink in. Look at me and tell me how nobody controls you, how you're an individual and you do what you want to do when you want to do it. Tell me how free you are of all of this. And as I was just having a conversation earlier, just letting you know, no one here is free. Not even white folks. They just think they are. We have liberties. Liberties and freedom is two different things. Understand that. Understand that. Liberty is afforded. I don't even want to say it's a right, because if liberty was a right, then everyone would have it. Even people locked up will have liberty. But it's not a right. Liberty is something that can be taken from you. You drive right now. You have a license. You think you have a right to that shit? No, the fuck you don't. Because the moment you do something that infringes on rules that's put in place, you'll have that license taken from you. And if you're caught driving without it, yeah, they'll give you fines and everything, but you rack up too many fines, you might have to do some jail time, because to them personally, you're not getting it. So let me put this person in jail for a little while so they can literally understand now. Now, freedom is laughable. Freedom is truly laughable, because freedom means you can do whatever you want to do. That is freedom. That is freedom. But none of y'all could do what y'all want to do. You can't go to work, tell your boss you're never coming in again, and you expect a check every 2 weeks. You can't do it. Or every week, depending on how you get paid. You can't do it. Shit, our freedom is about to be tested when schools open back up all the way, and they wind up telling us, hey, well, you know, if your kid's coming back, they need a COVID shot. And let me tell you, I could go on forever about that, but I'm not going to talk about that tonight. And I promised myself that I would stay focused. So let me bring myself back center. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on this letter. Because let me tell you something. Every time I read this letter, I can see it. I can see it. So I'm going to speak to some of this real quick, and I need y'all to speak to it with me. And I'm going to get to y'all comments and stuff. What's going on, Qua? Straight out of Chester in the house. Thank you very much. What's going on, Ricky Teller? Ricky Teller will be performing at Night of the Gods on June 19th. And most people who don't know what Juneteenth is, take your time and look that up. 309 years later, and still, it is still work. Yes, it is, sir. Yes, it is. How you doing, Myra? Myra said, speak truth. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I also want to say, hey, Celine, what's up? Vanessa, Raphael is down in Florida, I believe. This brother, real good brother. How you doing, Paige, Mingo, City Gorillas? That's my DJ. So I'm gonna turn around. To anybody I missed, I apologize. I'm going to turn around and get back into this letter. And as I said, for a couple weeks, I'm going to be working on this because, as you can see, I'm educating myself in a couple different things because I've heard of the Willie Lynch letter and I've been involved in conversations that was about the Willie Lynch letter. And it's not just a letter, it's a book as well, which really breaks down his system. And this is what we're going to be digging into. Not today. Today, we're just talking about this letter. But we're going to break it down. I want to really, really break it down. I want to make sure you understand this. I literally want to make sure you understand this because let me tell you something. It is imperative. We talk about cycles. Man, this ain't no fucking cycle. Let me tell you something about a cycle. A cycle has a beginning and an end. This started. When did it end? Let me tell you something. So I don't know if y'all understand how cars work. I'm going to take a small engine. So let's say you have a 4-cylinder engine. So in order for your engine to work, this is how I'm going to explain cycles to you, and they call it a cycle. Your pistons run along a camshaft. So it's a shaft at the bottom of your car connected to your transmission. The transmission spins it, right? Well, it helps spins it, helps it go or whatnot. So as this camshaft turns, it has nodules on it, but they're placed in different positions as they turn because none of your pistons are the same at the same height at the same time. So as it turns, this one will go up. It compresses the air inside of the chamber. The fuel injector sprays a little bit of fuel on top of the piston. The spark plug gives it a spark and an explosion happens, right? That pushes the piston down, brings the next piston up, the same thing happened, the next piston, and back to the beginning. And that's a cycle. It's like boom, 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 boom. And the faster you step on your gas, the faster this process happens. Of course, the rockers kind of lift up, let the exhaust out. It goes through the exhaust pipe, whatever. That's all a cycle. So it has a beginning and an end. This shit here, it began. This ain't a fucking curse. You know what a curse is? Because these are things that people call it. People say, oh, we got to break these generational curses. It is not a fucking curse. It is not a fucking cycle. It's not a curse. Let me explain the curse to you. A curse is when you do something or you go against some type of rule or law that's in place. And people who deal within magic and things of that nature turn around and say, I curse your land for 100 years, nothing will grow. Or for a better reference for people who may not get that, the color purple. Nothing but, no, what she say? Everything you think about is going to crumble. What she told Mister. Let me tell y'all something. Those are curses. Those are cycles. I mean, you can look this stuff up, curses and cycles. What we have is not generational curses. What we have is America's will that has been pushed upon us and laid down on top of us. And we've been experiencing this for years. And I tried to explain before how we trade in one form of slavery for another. Let me tell you something. This slave game, it's a game of checks and balances. So in order for the scales to be balanced, if you take one thing away, you got to put something back of equal or greater value. You have to keep the scales tipped. So if they say, well, okay, I'm going to give you a perfect example. And Juneteenth is coming up once again. So this Juneteenth is actually a perfect example. So they say the slaves are free. Oh, slaves are free. Yay. Then it's a problem. There's no more free labor. There is no more free labor. So what do we do to counteract The fact that we had to free these slaves, I got it. We'll do pig laws and vagrancy laws. We'll make it illegal for them to be on the street, although you freed these slaves and gave them nothing. So what'll happen is we will catch them, book them, because that's how the police started off as freaking JP. I don't know if you know what did they call the police? Not overseers. Overseers. Yeah, so that's how the police department started off. So what would happen is these slaves that are free was let go. They enacted pig laws that allowed them to arrest these slaves and then put them back on the plantation for free labor. And of course, the police department and those people involved get a kickback. That's how this world works, is off of kickbacks and shit, right? Right? That's how it works. Believe it or not, it's literally how it works. So, I digress. Sometimes I get carried away. I got to bring myself back. So as you can see, the slaves were taken off the scale. So it went out of balance. And so laws, there you go, laws were put in place to bring the scales back into balance. But in whose favor? Not people who look like you and me. In whose favor? You got what I'm saying? Think about that. But in whose favor? You probably say, well, I don't believe this. It didn't go down that way. I don't believe you, Mike. I don't believe you. You up there on a camera, you look a little overweight, you're sweating. You got what I'm saying? You done forgot your glasses. You know what I mean? You can't possibly be telling the truth, and you can't be reading that correctly. So let me reiterate this system of checks and balances, right? Here you go. Okay, time moves along. And all of a sudden, I'm going to make a big jump here, right? So all of a sudden you say, okay, schools are integrated. All schools now are integrated. And everybody like, oh, now the black people feel like, oh, we won. But no, you didn't. The scales were tipped out of balance. There needs to be retribution. I know what we can do. How about we deny access to loans? We create these zones that the black people live in. There'll be a school there, and they'll have to go to that school because that school is in that zone. But in that zone, we won't push money. In that zone, we won't put anything in it. We'll leave them there, let them fend for themselves. Got what I'm saying? Checks and balances. So now you don't have to say your nigger kids can't go to this school. So that would be breaking the law. Be breaking the law. But you can say your kids don't live in this zone, so they can't go. Matter of fact, I'm going to do you one better. Let me bring this present. I'm going to give you one more example. I'm going to say this word to you, and I really need you to hear me. Gentrification. So it's not legal for rich white people to come to your neighborhood and say, we want this neighborhood, get the fuck out. That's not how that go. It's not how that go. It's not how that go at all. Let me tell you what happens. They come to the neighborhood and they're like, well, the scales is out of balance because you have land that I want. You have property that I want. I'm going to give you a quick statistic. 26% of the homes in Chester are owned by people in the city of Chester. 26%. This community is a renter's community. Most of the people that own these houses, they live in Jersey, they live in Maryland, they live in New York. They don't live around here. 26%. Why believe me? Look it up for yourself. So now let me continue what gentrification looks like. Okay, so how do we get this neighborhood back? I got a good idea. We'll buy the properties up, right? We will drive the housing market up. There's a housing shortage in Chester. Y'all might not know that, but there's a housing shortage in Chester. You know why? I own properties and I follow properties, and my friends are landlords and shit like that. So we talk and discuss things all the time. And this is the sad part. I'm gonna say about 6 years ago, I was talking about this whole community being gentrified, because it is. I already saw the writing on the wall before it even started. I saw whenever you see white folks pull up, get out their car, take pictures of houses, get back in their car and leave. And the sad part is, let me drive up into a white person's neighborhood and start taking pictures. I bet you it won't be long before the police come. They'll probably confront me themselves and say, stand right there. Don't go anywhere. I'm calling the police. But this is public property. I can be here. I can take pictures of whatever I want, because that's what they'll say to you. So anyway, I digress. Once again, I keep telling myself, stay on topic. Stay on topic. Let me tell you something. If you feel like saying amen, say amen. We're going to call this church today. We're going to call this church today, because guess what? They buy the property. They fix up the property. They'll say, well, this property here, it's $1,300 a month to live here in this house. Now, most of y'all, you could tell me, you pay a very high rent down here and it's not worth it. People still getting shot in the face. Shit. I mean, let's be real. Sometimes at night, I still hear gunshots. Let's be real. And so most people think you're lying because they still see these things, but that's fine. They're not going to tell you, you can't live here. You know what they're going to do? They're going to say, well, we don't accept Section 8. Oh, when you come here to rent this place, your rent needs to be 1/3 of what you make at your job. So if you don't make 3 times what your rent is, you can't get that place. They can legally turn you down for it, because guess what? You can't afford it. That's how they get you out. Oh, we don't accept Section 8. So you might say, well, you don't accept Section 8. Well, I'm not on Section 8. Well, congratulations, you're not on Section 8. But how many people in this community is? But you know what happens? They real smart about it. This is them balancing the scales. They real smart about it. After having your Section 8 for a year, you can actually move somewhere else. You can move to another state if you wanted to. You could move to another community. And you know what? One of those really nice white communities that they're pretty much finished with and it's pretty much like going down, you'll move into there. And in your mind, it's better. It's better than where I was. But you don't realize where you was is getting better. All the strings that's being pulled behind the scenes that you'll never see. That's the scales balancing. Back out again. Balancing out, because guess what? You are holding the plates. Your arms are tired. You keep it straight. They just enjoy the ride up and down. Take something, give something. Take something, give something. And the only people that ain't getting is us. Let me tell you something. I'm going to say this and then I'm going to get focused back on. It's a lot of people that don't live within our neighborhoods. And I'll say it that way because it's a shame that even to talk about these things, you can't say a lot of white people. Because if you say a lot of white people, all of a sudden you're being racist. But how can you place blame on the victim? That's like when you see a girl and she's dressed up in the skimpiest outfit she could be dressed in, and she walk in the street and somebody rapes her. And then you turn around and say, well, if you wasn't dressed like a slut, you got what I'm saying? That's almost as if saying that it's okay that this happened to her, that she brought it on herself. You got what I'm saying? See, understand this. In order to talk about any problem, someone's going to be offended because there's someone who sees nothing wrong. And of course you would see nothing wrong because this is how you live. This is what you grew up in. And I tried to explain to people before, most white people, decent people, they work hard and everything. So they feel, well, like nobody has ever given me nothing. But you don't realize you didn't have to get it because you're broken down with a label. Mr. Willie Lynch said it himself. But that idea is a little later on when I really reveal to you what's going on. It's going to take me a couple weeks to get to that. But we need to start at the bottom. We need to start with the mastermind, Mr. Willie Lynch. We need to start with the framework that brings us to today. Now, we're going to loosely talk about how we were divided. We'll loosely talk about it. But before we loosely talk about it, let me get to some of these comments. I'm sorry, y'all. I told y'all I would be reading these comments. What's good, Amir? Amir said, DNA of motherfuckers. I thought you was Ro. Y'all sound just alike. Maybe so. Maybe so. Myra said, break it down. It really is imperative. Mike is right. Thank you so much, Myra. I appreciate you. Christina says, slavery never ended. We still live it. Freaking minimum wage makes us have to depend on the government, and in turn, they have control over a portion of our lives. Mary said, it's fucked up. Myra said, absolutely. I'm going to come back to the next comments, but I want to say this really quick. So let me tell you how slavery is still perpetuated. And it's so weird because we're going to have to jump around in this, but then I'm going to break it down by each concept that Mr. Willie Lynch put out there. So follow me on this. So I explained not too long ago how checks and balances and how slavery is still happening and how this is the big thing. Society still runs off of Mr. Willie Lynch's teachings, because guess what? In his teachings, which I said we're going to break down this section, so we will talk about it in depth, but the male was taken out of the home. Let me tell you something. If you have Section 8, you can't have a man there. You can't have a man living there with you. You can't. So the male is taken out of the house. The male was broken down so badly that he could no longer be looked at as a protector, which made the women what? Remember in the letter I said to you, we have to make them love us, right? So the women depended on the slave master. Most of our women depend on the government to not only house them, but feed them, right? To give them health care, right? And what did you have to give up for it? You just got to give up your man. But one of my good friends say Uncle Sugar. That's what she called Uncle Sam. She called him Uncle Sugar. But Uncle Sugar going to take care of you. He's going to give you what you need. He makes sure that every month your children have food. He makes sure that if they get sick, they can go to the doctors. He makes sure you keep a roof over your head. Hell, he even got programs in place to help you pay that electric bill. As a matter of fact, he even gave up free cell phones, courtesy of Uncle Sugar. Take care of that real good. Real good. Make you feel independent, don't it? But how can you feel independent when you depend on Uncle Sugar? See, you think Uncle Sugar is faceless. You know? He got you believing that you did all of this on your own. You still had to jump through your hoops. You know, unlike Cuddy from Dead President, nobody had to suck a dick. You got what I'm saying? And I hate that, I don't hate that I sound vulgar, and I won't apologize for that, because, I mean, reality. It's reality. You ain't had to do nothing for it but stand in a line, but fill out some paperwork. You won't answer to a man, but you will answer to Uncle Sugar. How much money you making? Oh, what, you worked a little harder? You tried to make money on your own? Checks and balances, baby. You worked some overtime. Now report your income so we could make sure your kids got a little less to eat on. Oh, you wanted a car. Oh, you want a car. Uncle Sugar didn't give you no car program. So you want to work extra, you want a little bit more, it's going to cost you, baby. But guess what? You didn't have to suck a dick. Think about that. Just honestly think about that for a moment. I wonder how much of yourself are you really giving, right? To keep these checks and balances in place. You know how they keep us in place? Because they keep our woman in check. They keep their foot on our neck and they keep our woman in check. What you need that nigga for? You got Uncle Sugar. And he take care of everything. Everything. Hell, guess what? He even talked to your doctor to make sure that most of your kids got IEPs. So now that they all got ADHD and they can get medication and stuff like that and help with learning and everything, you can get another check. All you got to do is label your child for life. But guess what? We're going to give you this $500, $600 a month. We're going to help you take care of him. All you got to do is choose. You want that man in your life? Or do you want Uncle Sugar? Because Uncle Sugar got what you need. He ain't going to cheat on you. He treat all bitches equal. He ain't going to cheat on you, baby. You number one. He makes sure you get what you need. And when you feel like you want to come up, you want to raise up, he'll take a little bit away. He ain't going to argue with you. He ain't going to fight with you. Why would he do that? Why he do that? You got what I'm saying? He made it a habit of starting a business called Save a Hoe, right? Oh, but there's somebody right there sitting down in their front room getting mad at me because they probably like, oh, you saying a lot of hoes and bitches over there. You getting real comfortable with that word. But I learned from the best because all I hear most women around me calling each other is bitch all day long. And I keep trying to think back to when that became okay. Oh, excuse me. I know when it became okay. I remember now. It's part of our culture because it's what the rap game is made of. What was that? Back in the 80s and stuff. I can remember at one point, black women went from queens and stuff to raps. In raps, they were queens and everything. And then they just turned into hoes and bitches. You got what I'm saying? I don't know where that transition went. But can you be mad at me for being trendy? I don't know. I digress. Christina said, what they're going to do is raise rent so high they're going to force everyone out. Yes, indeed. Mary said, yes, sir, not worth the rent at all. I agree. Christina said, a lot of people already migrated to Sharon Hill and Darby slowly. Chester will be the good neighborhood. That way, Widener can expand their territory. Let me tell you something, Christina, that's a whole nother conversation. But see, they're not ready for that. We not ready for that. We are not ready for that because most people don't know if the college becomes big enough, it could actually stand outside and get its own zip code. Like Chester is 19013, Widener is also. But Widener gets big enough, then it will no longer be 19013. But you already see how they changed the street patterns and everything. I mean, Widener do what they want. Let's see. I'm going to skip down a little bit. Amir said, don't forget the man who both your children will be responsible for what he gives you. Yes, indeed. Christina said, that's why a lot of people don't get married, either because if they do, they'll cut you off of everything. Let me tell you something, Uncle Sugar, a jealous motherfucker. You want to mess with a dude? You want to get married on me? Oh, I got you, baby. I got you. You cut off. You don't get nothing. We had a good arrangement. All you had to do was stay in your place. But you want to be loving another. Let me tell you something. He just like a motherfucker walking the streets, ain't he? But that's another conversation. Yes, it is. It's a whole nother conversation. I want y'all to understand something. There is an inherent evil in all of this. The problem is that we see it, we claim we understand it, but we keep doing the same thing. And Lord knows, we love popping up the meme on Facebook and Instagram. Oh, what's the definition of doing the same thing and expecting different results? What, you think you're a fucking scholar? You think you're a scholar because you reposted something somebody said because they thought it sounded clever? I mean, let's be real. We're all victims of our own madness. We literally are. So let's talk about how he spoke on putting in place the differences. The differences. Let's call them labels. These are the differences between everybody. We're all labeled, and some of us, we have more labels than others, but all of us have multiple labels because we can all fall into multiple categories. Just what it is. So, age, that speaks for itself. Intelligence. Size, sex, sizes of plantations and status of plantations, attitude of owners, dark, light. I mean, come on. Matter of fact, in my lifetime, I actually remember there was a time where light-skinned people was in, and then dark-skinned people were in, and then bald-headed dudes was in, and then dreadheads were in. You got what I'm saying? Trendy. It's all trendy, but it's all labels. Slowly but surely, we have to realize that we are living life by the labels that's placed on us. And most people just fall into line with that. They just do. So he made a comment. He did, Mr. Willie Lynch. He made a comment. And I need you to think about this because I read it twice. He said, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. Envy is stronger than admiration. Envy will move you to do the most negative shit. And let me tell you, it's almost like second nature. You don't even have to think about it. It's kind of like if you get ready to fall, let's say you tripped and you're about to fall. Do you realize that you don't think about putting your hands out to catch yourself? You automatically do it. It's an automatic response, such as breathing. It's an automatic response. You don't really got to think about it at all. It's just something that happens. It's like blinking. I mean, you can blink if you want to, but you're blinking all day and not even paying attention to it. So envy being stronger than respect or admiration, it's easy to be envious, and your actions from being envious, sometimes you plan them, sometimes you don't. Sometimes they're just self-refueling. You just naturally do stuff and you don't see it as being wrong because the narrative that's been sold to us is this. And I want y'all to think about this. All of a sudden, everything in America is okay. You have people telling you it's okay for you to feel how you feel. It's okay for this. It's okay for that. But along with that, you're independent. You're independent. Along with that, you can't trust nobody. Let's go with that. You can't trust nobody. Where do you hear that from more than anything? Shit, rap all day will tell you how you doing this by yourself. Rap all day will tell you how you can't trust friends. Matter of fact, look on Facebook. I promise you, if you go down your timeline far enough within the past 7 days, and this is something that I haven't even looked up, but within the past 7 days, somebody on your timeline has posted something about how you can't trust family, you can't trust friends, how, you got to look out for yourself because ain't nobody going to look out for you. The negativity is self-reciprocating. That's the cycle that never ends. So it can't be a cycle. It's just continuous. It's continuous. And we live by these things. We teach our kids these things. We allow them to hear the music that programs us, to watch the movies that program us. We allow them to buy into the hype. It's self-reciprocating. We are self-reciprocating. We just keep on doing the same things. We make no adjustments. And even half the time, people who say that they know, they still don't do what they should do. They don't. Do I get it? No. Do I understand it? No. Let me tell you something. If I'm to be quite honest, lately here I've just been questioning my own sanity. I have. And I've been questioning my own sanity because I look up these things. I learn these things. I check my references. I try to get the most reliable information that I could possibly get. And after sifting through things and reading and coming to an understanding, I start thinking to myself like, well, it only makes sense that we do this and we stop doing that. Let me tell you something. This radio station here, so it's here, it's in our community, but then you'll have people who do negative things against it to try to shut it down. Meanwhile, there's not another radio station in our community. All the narratives we receive are from news outlets and everything else, things that we don't benefit from, things we don't make money from, things that none of you are working at. There's no job created there for you. But then here, is that envy? Matter of fact, here go one better. So I'm going to tell you my personal experience. And I do best with this. And typically I don't say names, but fuck it. Before I tell this story, let me tell y'all something. And I need you to understand this. I'm not angry. For everybody that I ever felt wronged me, I forgive you. I do. And there's a lot of people out there who think I'm angry at them or something. I've heard people say that they thought I was upset at them. And I'm like, well, nah, it happened and I'm over it and I've been over it. You know what I mean? I'm not angry at nobody. So here you go. I'm gonna have y'all look at me like I'm crazy because I'm going to give you a page from my life. Let me see. I'm going to try to do this quick because at the top of the hour, I want to tell y'all what's going on in my life. Let me tell you. So when I had my cafe, I went over town in Chester. We call it Overtown. Don't ask me why. Most people call their places downtown or uptown, but our business district we call Overtown. But I guess that's because we're east and west. So, but you have to travel north or south to get to it. It's weird. We just call it Overtown. And most of the time, people from out of town, anyway, stay focused, Miller, stay focused. So when I came back from Afghanistan, I decided to open up this cafe. This all has to do with Willie Lynch. You got to understand this. This is what helped me to forgive. Willie Lynch helped me forgive. Something that rings in my head is forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. That's profound. Sometimes you have to forgive people because they know what they're doing, but they don't know what they're doing. You got what I'm saying? So anyway, when I got over town, I lived in Chester for so long, and I've been in and out of Chester because I was in the military, but I lived in Chester my whole life pretty much. I went over town for nothing. Because Overtown was dead. It wasn't nothing over there. There was a Chinese restaurant. There was a bank that I never wanted to go to because it was one in Brookhaven in the white neighborhood, a nice neighborhood. I could just drive up to the drive-through. I didn't have to get out my car and go inside or nothing to go to the ATM. And the lobby of the ATM wasn't nasty. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it is what it is. I drive, so I'll go to the ATM, you know? Anywho, it was the bank. A place called Abu's. Now, most people from Chester might remember Abu's. It was there. You know what I mean? But other than that, oh, yeah. And the young lady across the street that did hair, I can't remember her name. And it was a tax guy over there. One guy who did taxes, an African gentleman and his wife. Really nice folks. Really nice folks. Other than that, there was nothing else. Now, I wanted to open up my business, right? And so I went looking for a building. I found the building. I figured, well, I'm going to do what I've been doing, entertainment, poetry, you know, singing, comedy, stuff like that, getting everybody involved, bringing arts back to our community. And it's always been in my mind because I am college educated that arts is always the start of a community coming back. It is. So I wanted to try to revitalize our community through that. I opened up the cafe and lo and behold, everybody, it was like, what's the guy name on Dances with Wolves? If you build it, they will come, fill the dreams. I can't remember his name. I'm sure I will one day. But I built open mics. And let me tell you, they came. They came. And not only did they come, I was in a newspaper. I found myself on TV. I found myself a lot of things. And all I did was open up this cafe. But I feared that in opening up that cafe, it was a catalyst for the beginning of the end. I explain that to you later. Now, I opened up the cafe, it's popping, and everybody coming there. And it was a gentleman by the name of Devin Walls. And he owned something called Star Shooters, and he'd been doing that for a long time. I didn't really like working with the brother, but let me tell you something. You can't deny someone's grind or someone's movement. So he does stuff and everything else. And I learned a couple things from him, and that was a good thing in my eyes. But he wind up linking up with some Caucasian dude from Vermont. He used to be like a vice president or something of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. And he wound up buying the Chinese store across the street. Well, not him per se, but the white guy. And I remember this guy coming around because everybody would come in my cafe to get all these ideas. They pick my brain and stuff. I remember the white guy coming around talking to me a little bit. His name is Chuck Lacey. He came around a couple of times rapping to me and everything. I think he really he was trying to figure out my political affiliation, just trying to see who I was. He was kind of sizing me up. And I knew that then. But I believe in revitalization, so I wasn't really buying a lot of stuff they were selling. I was listening, but I wasn't buying what they were selling. Now, let me tell you how important the cafe was at a point in time. They would have all these meetings. And when I say they, I mean the media theater would come down here to Chester, like the people who ran that. You had some people from City Hall, some freaking Republican people, and all these people was in the building. They even brought down an analyst from like Brooklyn who does studies on the populations of communities to see where that community is at and to understand how you think as a community to put into their analysis on what their takeover is looking like. Let me tell you something. They got me in a room one day, and I think this when everybody stopped fucking with me. I cussed them all out. Because what I understood was like, yo, at first I thought that y'all was coming down here and y'all wanted to help bring the community back. But then I started understanding you don't want to bring the community back. You want to take it over. And what you're trying to tell me is that I can make some money in this whole deal. That's what it is. Understand that. They're going to try to get you to buy into what they saying because they figure nigga is what nigga does. And nigga never had no money. So we mentioned a couple dollar signs, nigga gonna fall right in. But it don't work that way because I'm not broke. It don't work that way because I care more about my community than what I do about your dollars. It doesn't work that way because I see what the police do to us. It doesn't work that way because I see how politics work for us. I see how our will has been broken to even vote in a system that's been set up to be against us anyway. That's why most people don't even want to vote because they believe their vote don't matter. And typically when we vote, we always voting for the lesser of two evils. It's not always for the better man. It's typically for the lesser of two evils. Somebody is less bad than somebody else. But anyway, I digress. Let me bring it back. So I open up this cafe and I start doing my thing and people was coming. People were coming. And let me tell you how people became envious of that. People became envious of that. And I want to say, I want to say, see, because I'm thinking to myself, so there's this thing in our neighborhood. Of course, most people who live in black neighborhoods know it. People are saying, if you speak out against something, you're hating. You're hating, you're knocking somebody else's hustle. You're trying to bring them down. You're basically, you don't want to see them succeed. And they will reverse stuff on you and make it like you're the crab in the barrel. Even if you're pointing out something wrong, let's say you saw somebody scamming on old people and they was making money and you want to stop them from getting over on the old people. Down here, you would be hating. Even though it's wrong, you would be hating. Well, I thought it was wrong to try to gentrify this community instead of revitalize it, because I didn't want the community taken away from the people, but that's not progressive to some people. You got to ask yourself, what good is this city without its people? Chester is a special place. It's a little weird, but most places are. But it's a special place. And y'all meant enough to me to not want to sell y'all out. Y'all meant enough to me to not want to. They came to my place telling me how I wasn't charging enough for my food and services if I really want to make money. But what they're preparing for is the gentrification that's happening. Because I don't have to tell you I don't want you in my restaurant. What I do is make my food so expensive that you can't afford it. The average person can't afford it. I'll say that because there is probably more people living in this city that get government benefits than people who are outside of that. You got what I'm saying? It's more people caught up in this modern day slavery than who actually have a little bit more liberty. And I say a little bit more liberty because even if you look up on the Census Department, if you look up the average salary of African Americans, we make less than any other race in this country. And so I say once again, it's not just me saying it. The statistics literally show it. Now, once again, I'm in my head fighting on whether I want to say what I want to say because, once again, I'm affected by it as well. I'm no better than you. No better than you, I promise you. No better than you. And I fight myself because not only do I fight against Mr. Willie Lynch, but I fight against the culture that he helped to create with us. You got what I'm saying? With us. But I'll say it flat out. To me personally, I've witnessed with my eyeballs. I've talked to people who was directly affected by this whole push of gentrification. And I could tell you situations that you would literally think like, oh, he gotta be lying, or, oh, I know this person wouldn't do nothing like that. But I promise you, everything ain't always what you think you seeing. It's not. So I was more on the side of revitalization, and I believe that Devin Walls was more on the side of gentrification. All the white folks came down, they was pumping money into him, and he was the golden boy. I would much think that he was like that first Indian that Christopher Columbus and them ran into, the one that probably led him to the tribe. I don't know if you ever watched Lone Ranger, when Tonto sold out his tribe for a little bit of silver. But he didn't know it was going to go down that way. But I believe Devin knew. I believe he knew. And what happened was they did bring money to the community, but they was filtering it through him, where they were trying to make everybody go to him or work through him. I remember people thought I didn't even own my cafe. They thought it was a subsidiary of what was that called? MJ Free at the time. You got what I'm saying? And so for me personally, it created a crazy situation. And most of y'all already know, I got my problems. I have anxiety, I have depression, I have PTSD, and freshly out the war and everything, and trying to deal with all of these things and deal with the added pressure of having the cafe, I wound up saying, fuck it. And I just walked away from it all because in my mind's eye, I grew up in the hood too. And like I said, I'm affected by Willie Lynch as well. So back then, breaking away from who I used to be, the only solution that I had was to lash out and hurt somebody. And I had to come to the understanding because I realized that I have issues. So I had to go get therapy and everything else for myself. This was prior to all of that. And it helped me to understand that, brother, don't turn around and try to hurt this man. Sometimes we have to sacrifice the things we love for the love of ourselves. Sometimes we have to realize what's more important. And I weighed it out. And I said to myself, what can I do in this community to change this community? And what can I do if I lose myself in the process? Can't do anything. Lose myself in the process. Like if who's going to save the person who's viewing themselves as a savior? And not that I viewed myself as a savior. I guess I just viewed myself as somebody who cared enough to make something happen. I had the longest running open mic in Chester. And it's the weird part about everything. Just recently, I started the open mic back up again. And lo and behold, my good friend starts an open mic on the same night I'm starting an open mic. And see, that's Mr. Willie Lynch. That's Mr. Willie Lynch at its finest. Envy. Envy is stronger than admiration. And he used a brother who said that he admired me to me, literally, on multiple occasions, admired what I was doing, encouraged me to keep moving in the direction I was moving, and then you turn around and do the same thing. And most of my friends was like, well, you should be angry. But what would that solve? Nothing. Nothing. Who cares about my anger? But I'm going to stress myself out until I have a stroke or a heart attack over something that nobody cares about but me? Like, no, that's not going to happen. So I decided to be smarter about it, because sometimes that's the only choice that you have. I decided to educate myself, and I had to understand the human condition. I had to understand why we are where we are. And I understand now why we are where we are. Because Mr. Willie Lynch, he did a great job. I commend you, sir. You did a great job. You created a process and you promised that it would last longer than from the time you said it till now. You said up to like 1,000 years. So now I have to ask myself, I literally have to ask myself, what does the future hold for us? When do we not only understand what has befallen us, but take action to move it in a different direction? You got what I'm saying? And I'm sorry, you got to understand, I am my brother's keeper. See, I realize that more is required of me. So I can't come out punching. I can't come out swinging. I can't make a phone call. Well, I can make a phone call, but I can't make a phone call and say, hurt this person, hurt that person, because then I become the very thing that I despise and the very thing that I'm trying to work against. I just have to have faith that in educating myself and sharing what I learned and talking about it with all of you, that we can make tomorrow better for our children, that we can make tomorrow better. You got what I'm saying? Because right now, this ain't cutting it, and we cutting each other's throats like crazy, and I just don't get it. We won't take constructive criticism, because if somebody tells you, but this is once again the checks and balances that work against us. You got what I'm saying? If somebody comes to you and tell you, let's say you cook food, and somebody came and told you like, yo, man, you probably using a little bit too much salt. And then somebody else tells you that, and somebody else tells you that. And let's say you get 20 people tell you that, and you still sitting there talking about, well, this is just how I cook, so. Wrong answer. Literally, wrong answer. You got what I'm saying? We can't do that. Ain't nobody trying to hate on you. If someone is giving you constructive criticism, they want to see you grow. That's it. But that's not the way we take it because of how good Willie Lynch is. Pit us all against each other. Make us envious of each other. Envy is stronger than admiration. Somebody could dig your hustle all day long and be envious of you. And then they're doing things, whether it be subconsciously or consciously, that's knocking you back. You got what I'm saying? They could do things whether consciously or subconsciously. We hide it under the guise of not liking somebody. This man said, the black slaves, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male, and the young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. Guess what? He said everything in this letter except for children against their parents and parents against their children. But I guarantee you, there is much more in store for these conversations that I'm trying to have with you all today and in these upcoming weeks. Let me tell you something. I literally am going to do everything that I can do to break the bonds that have been placed around us. That's holding us still, that's holding us in place. Let me tell you something. I wrote a poem a long time ago called Abandoned. And even when I think about this poem, Abandoned, it's so funny. It's so freaking funny. Like, I'll probably never do it again. But it's so funny because of the way that I think now versus how I thought before. You got what I'm saying? It's so funny. Let me tell you. They came to Africa and they took a bunch of Africans and took away everything they knew. And they put a Bible in your hand and they told you to close your eyes and pray. And as you closed your eyes and prayed, they stole everything. So when you opened up your eyes, you exchanged everything for a Bible and then was told to trust in God. And to have faith, be patient, and pray. Be peaceful. Made you domicile. No one's fighting to escape this slavery. What we're doing is existing within it. We're surviving because we do as we're told. Because escaping, we're afraid of. We're afraid of waking up. We're afraid of really, truly understanding what's happening here. And we have to break that fear. And let me tell you something. I'm not saying you can't believe in God or you can't have a higher power. But are you waiting for God to fix this? For God to make it better? I wonder how many people died praying. I wonder how many people lost their lives as their necks were being placed in nooses and they were being pulled up a tree. And their last thought processes was prayer to a God they were given. How deep is that? And we're so indoctrinated that even when I speak these words right now, I feel some type of shame in my heart, but I don't know where it comes from. Because reality tells me that I identify Christian because my parents did, and their parents did, and their parents did, and their parents did, and their parents probably worshiped ISIS. But we were disconnected and killed if we did anything else, killed if you worshiped anything else but what you were told to worship. And even when we see lie, we still call it truth. We still live the lie, even though you know it's not the truth. And I'm not calling Christianity a lie, but I'm saying white Jesus is everywhere. In Africa, there are pictures of white Jesus hanging in people's houses. Puerto Rico, pictures of white Jesus. When the honest to God truth is, even in the Bible, the very brief description that they give, hair of wool. Hair of wool. Have you ever seen a sheep overgrown? Skin of burnt bronze. And we hear these words, but we worship the picture. This is what we point to. This is what we teach our kids. This is what we tithe to. And let me tell you what's really funny. So you tithe. You take all of your money, right? Not all of your money. You take 10% and you put it in a collection plate. And your church takes all of your hard-earned money, which most of you don't have to give, and you put it, the church puts it in a white-owned bank and won't give you a loan. They won't even give you a loan. They won't even give you a loan. You could buy a house in a white neighborhood and everybody else's house could be worth $250,000 and your house would be worth $195,000. Oh boy. And the hits keep coming. They just keep coming. I don't know. I'm going to read some of these comments because I know that, once again, I'm talking too much. So, where can I go? Boop. Forgive me. Christina said, when you start to not let things affect you, you become more at peace. People try to test you, and the more they see it does not affect you, they slowly back down. Also, single-handed, it'll take longer to get there, but collectively we can get things done. People have to change their mindset. We definitely are better than this, but we can't see it because we are fighting to get to the top, not realizing we are stomping on those holding us up. And what happens after a while, no one holds you up anymore. And you fall. And we keep falling. Man, that was some deep shit. I dig that. We fall and we keep falling. Myra said, God is not a man, God is a spirit. I totally agree. I totally agree. And quite honestly, if I had to put a sex to God, I would say God is a female. And I say that because women are XX, men are XY. So it takes two X's to make the woman and at least one X to make a man. So why would God make his... If we're made in God's image, then why aren't women YX and men YY? Does it make sense? I'm just asking for a friend. Does it make sense to you? Anyhow, back to your regular scheduled program. So anyway, I'm going to do... first off, I want to mention, because it's almost 9:30, I haven't even, let me tell you something. This is so layered. This is so layered that this is why, y'all, we're going to talk about Willie Lynch for a couple weeks, and I'm going to break down per subtitle, per topic, per method, and we're going to strictly stick to the method that he's saying, what to do. And we're going to talk about that and how it affects us. And we're going to have a conversation about that. So the first episode of that is going to start next week. put that on the shelf real quick. I want to tell everybody on Juneteenth, which is June 19th, I am having an event at the Chester Fine Arts Center East, 17 East 7th Street, called Night of the Gods. It's called Night of the Gods. And what it is it's really all black men performing from their preferred genre, whether it's comedy, whether it's poetry, whether it's music. And it's nothing against women, because I will be having a Night of the Goddess. You got what I'm saying? Where that will be all females performing. So what I'm saying is, it's a night for you to come out and for you to hear the male perspective. You get to hear the God in African American males. You get to hear the God in them. From the smiles to the laughs, to the cries, to the love, to the anger, you get to hear it all. Because these are all things and emotions that make us who we are. There are. It is. That's what I meant to say. So anywho, I'm going to keep this rolling along. I spoke on Night of the Gods. Also, the same day, same place. This event starts at 4 p.m. It's called Lashes and Cocktails. And this is really, to me, I've always viewed it as a celebration of small businesses, but small businesses that are female owned. And it's phenomenal the way the women move. But this is why I say, if God is anything, I would say God is a woman. That the nature of a woman, how hard you work. Man, very organized. They'll get their stuff together. Let me tell you something. You got the right woman in your corner, man, you could do anything. A woman will not let you fucking fail. If she loves you, she will suffer for you. She will fucking suffer for you if she loves you. But you break that off, she won't even make you a cheeseburger. I promise you. I promise you. But you want to see something get done, give it to a woman. That is God. I'm telling you. It don't matter what's stacked up against you. Let her get angry on your behalf. She will burn a motherfucker down. Let her get angry on your behalf. Touch what she loves, and you will pay one way or another. And I always say the scariest thing about a woman is she's patient. She is patient. That's scary. That's scary because you thought it was over. Not for her. I told you when you touch mine, I'll take yours. That's real stuff. But anyway, I digress. So once again, what we're talking about is just the introduction of Willie Lynch. The introduction, the impact that he's had on our culture, on our society, and the fact that we are still very deeply enslaved. Look, we live where they tell us to live. We work for less than anybody. Is that not slavery? I mean, back in the day, slaves got a place to lay their head. They got food to eat. They got clothes on their back. Even if those clothes weren't the best clothes, it was clothes on their back. And maybe it's why we covet name brand things. I don't know. Maybe those experiences are imprinted on our DNA. So now we want the finest. Or maybe we think so low of ourselves that we trick ourselves into believing that if we have the most expensive pair of sneakers, then we have value. We now have value because these sneakers cost this. Oh, these red bottoms. I don't know if that's still a thing. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's where we find our value. Maybe Maybe this is how it goes. I think I might understand now. I don't know. Maybe we're not worth anything if we're not wearing the latest fashions, if y'all not walking around in them tights that hold your butt up just right. Maybe that's what it is. If we don't have these designer glasses on, maybe if we're not spending every dime that we have to prove our self-worth, maybe we can buy something that will actually add value to our generational wealth and not just our general feeling on what we look like or how you have to look to prove that you are somebody. I don't know. But how smart was he? And then, should we be angry at him because he came up with such a good plan? I don't know. I tell you what, he's a hero to white people who still benefit from his ways. Let me tell you something. It's so weird the way we have purposely been pushed down. So weird. Let me tell you, there are African Americans who were with Indian tribes because, of course, people fall in love, people do things, and children are produced from that. And the weird part about everything is when the government decided to settle up with Indians and try to make things kind of right, I guess, for stealing the country. I don't know. They put certain things in place which ensured that Indians would get what was coming to them. But when they realized that African Americans would also be privy to getting the same things that those Indians were given, even if the African American was half Indian and half African American, they made up a whole total separate act to keep African Americans from having access to that. The whole thing is, I'm going to dive deep into these things and I'm going to share information with you guys. I want to share places where you can go and get this information from. I want you to understand. I even want you to understand this. I'm going to put this out here. So I believe it was the story of Jesus Christ and Immaculate Conception. And this is going to sound off the topic, but I'm going to bring it back center. So, Jesus Christ was born of Mary, and it was Immaculate Conception because sex didn't happen. But this is going to be funny when I tell y'all this, and you can look it up yourself. Where did that story come from? I bet you most of y'all looking at me like, oh, because that happened. It's in the Bible. Well, back in Egypt, there was a similar story about Isis and her son, Horus. Horus was Immaculate Conception. He was God. So what's the chances of ancient Egypt matching up with Christianity, or should I say Christianity matching up with ancient Egypt? Let me tell you, I don't know. But this is why I said a lot of times, the more you educate yourself, the more you see what's going on around you. And the more you see what's going on around you, the more you can't participate in it anymore. You can't keep accepting things that you find are not true. then you don't even know who to trust. Let me tell you something. It works so well for them, for what Willie Lynch did, to make us not even trust information that we get. We don't trust each other when we tell each other things unless it's something negative. But let me tell you something. They start running around here talking about getting vaccines, and there's so many people who ran and got vaccinated. But I want to ask you a question. So if you had chicken pox, all my people out there who had chicken pox, you can't get chicken pox again. As a matter of fact, most of the things that you get inoculated from as a child, let me tell you something. If you got it when you was little and you lived through it, you won't catch it because your body's immune system has built up against it. It's something like, let me tell y'all something that's crazy. Y'all not gonna believe me when I tell you, but once again, look it up. So mostly everybody in this world, well, everybody in this world has a form of herpes living in their body. The only reason why you don't have outbreaks and stuff like that is because of your immune system. Your immune system typically suppresses things. But the way that they will explain it to you, well, the way that they did explain it to you in high school and stuff, it was the worst thing in the world. Because they said, well, once you get this, you'll never get rid of it. And they create a scare. They come up with this whole, your children need to get these shots before they hit a certain age. The female children, the male children, I guess, before they hit a certain age, so they won't wind up having problems from herpes down the road. Or I guess it's like form of herpes or whatever that's supposed to lead to cancer or something. I can't recall because it's been so long since, but I digress. What I'm saying is, I said all that just to say this, that most people are running around getting shots from something that if you already had COVID, you're protected from. And I don't understand, if you made the vaccine from someone's blood who had the virus, then that just proves that once you have the virus, you're using their blood to vaccinate people. Then the people who had it and survived, they should be cool. But they're still encouraging everybody to get it. One more thing on that, and then I'm going to keep it moving. So if you have cancer, you have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for chemo treatments and stuff. Literally, people going broke because they don't want to die. People doing what they got to do to stay living. Let me tell you something. If you got a fucking headache, you got to buy aspirin. You got to buy pads for a period that every woman has. You have to pay for water to drink because I don't know why you got to pay. But somebody tell me, why do we have to pay for water? Now, you giving this vaccine away like it's fucking free candy on Halloween. Help me understand that. Why do I have to pay for water, something that my body needs to live, but I don't have to pay for this vaccine? Tell me why people who are dying from cancer, have to pay for treatment, but you don't have to pay for a vaccine. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go one better. So I had a procedure done to me a while ago. I can't remember what it's called, but I'm sure I will soon enough. But anyway, what they do is they cut open like your skin and they go into your vein and they put a camera thing all the way up to your heart to check your heart for clogs and stuff like that, because I have atrial fibrillation. So they was checking my heart out and everything, and they tell me, oh, well, they saw like a 30% like clog or whatever, right? And then they come out. Now, you put me to sleep. You did this whole procedure. You was in there. You was in my vein, up in my heart. looking at this, right? And instead of moving the 30% of gunk that was in there, you left it there. You left it there, but you were in there. You charged me for the procedure and everything else, but you were in there. You charged me as much as you could, but you didn't fix anything. You just looked at it and left. I don't know. I had to pay for that, but I don't have to pay for a vaccine for something that I might get or may not get. Every year, people get flu vaccinations and everything else. I haven't gotten the flu. I never had the flu. So, I don't know. Some things are just a little confusing to me. But we will run out and do exactly what we're told to do. But I mean, he did say they must love, respect, and trust only us. And people will talk about it. But maybe so many people are afraid. Oh, wait a minute. They said that they had to use fear too. Because fear is strong. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. I use fear. I see a lot of that going on. And I think maybe in a lot of ways, moving from the virus and just talking about us in general, I think in a lot of ways we fear each other. I don't know. You see a group of black people, I don't know. Somebody looked like they might be up to no good or something. Maybe they had a bad day and they just got a hoodie on with a mean face, but you might be intimidated. I don't know. I hear more and more people saying how, if you got to call a white man if you want something done. If you want something done right. But you got to realize a lot of people operating out of this ignorance that we was brought forth from, that we were taught, that we teach our children, that you keep us connected to, that we refuse to let go of. Refuse to let go. I don't get it. I bet you didn't know that lifeguards are taught to let you drown. If they come out to save you and you're thrashing around because you're afraid, don't work like on TV. They grab you and you just stop. But some people are so fearful that they endanger the person who come to save their lives. So a lot of times they're taught to swim down, to pull you under the water, because if they pull you under the water, you'll let go. Therefore, they save their life, but let you drown and pull you to shore and try to resuscitate you from there. I don't know. Unfortunately, in this lifetime, we don't have the option of just letting you drown. Unfortunately, I feel like I can't just let you drown. But what I will do is hold on to you, and I'm going to take you into this rabbit hole. You're probably going to want to fight against it because it's uncomfortable. It's not the direction you want to go. It's not what you're used to. But at some point in time, we have to wake up. At some point in time, we have to realize the reality that we live in. And it's not enough just to understand where we are at. We have to start doing something about it. Because if we do nothing about it, we will still stand in place. And when Willie Lynch said 1,000 years, let me tell you, this whole letter he put together was put together in 1712. He made this speech in 1712. It hasn't been 1,000 years. Hasn't even been half of that. You got what I'm saying? Hasn't even been half of that. And it can only get worse as we move forward. So it's time to put the brakes on this. And I don't care if only 2 of y'all go forth and teach your children something better. What I will tell you is I will leave my mark on this world with that, and let that be my legacy, that one person heard me and they told one other person. Let that be my legacy. If I can bring change to one person, let that be my legacy. And I'm okay with that, because it's better to have one person left behind with what you taught or what you brought to the table than having nobody sitting at the table at all. It's better to have one person, because at least you know that there'll be a chance that they can live within a generation where maybe somebody, 2 people may be willing to listen. And maybe next time around in that next generation, maybe 4 people will be willing to listen. And not only listen, but take action. Got what I'm saying? It's not a game. Let me see. I'm going to get back to these questions now. Christina said, definitely, when you do wake up, you get ostracized. People isolate you. You become the problem because you are triggering something inside them, and fingers get pointed at you. You're deemed a nuisance, labeled crazy, but yet people believe in something that they've only been told. We are afraid to discover our own power, because then we would have to depend on each other and not master. Damn, girl, you're going crazy tonight. I dig that. I dig that. We would have to depend on each other and not our master. That's scary. Master, feed us. Master, make sure we got a place to stay. Make sure we got health care. We got to depend on each other. Nigga, you can't take care of me. What can you do for me? You worthless. You're nothing but a worthless, lazy nigga. Oh, that sounds familiar. Damn. Who you sound like? Who you look like? Who that sound like? You worthless, lazy, you're undependable. I can't depend on you. I got to depend on me. Yet you depending on you, but depending on master too. But I guess as long as he don't get the credit for it. As long as I do it in silence, it's like a guilty pleasure. Like you're driving down the street like, I don't want to wait for my life to be over. And then you see somebody coming and you're like, oh shit, I'm getting back in the hood. Let me turn on boom, 1, 2, 3 into the 4. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Drake is at the door. Okay, I'm cool now. Nobody knows about my shame. I don't know. We would have to depend on each other. But what does that look like? Because everybody knows you can't depend on a nigga. Everybody knows that we're inferior. Everybody knows that we're defective. Everybody knows that we're not even human. I mean, it's white people who are afraid of you and they don't even know you. And their fear has to be real. It has to be based in some reality. You got what I'm saying? But then this shit is all in reverse, because shouldn't we be afraid of them? How can you be afraid when y'all killing us? How can you be afraid? I guess everything they say must be true. We can't depend on each other. We can't depend on each other because I guess you're not dependable. Because look at it this way, if you feel like you can't depend on black people, then black people can't depend on you because you're not dependable because you're black. So that definition is extended to everybody, but I'm sure you'll sit there and say, oh, no, you can depend on me. I do what I say I'm going to do. Oh, so it's just everybody else who don't. So maybe somehow that logic makes sense. But no. Oh, let me guess. People always let you down. So what you want to tell me is that there's never been a black person that done anything positive for you. And since you've never seen it, so that means your mom, your dad, your grandmom, that means anybody you ever had a relationship with, any black teacher, any black anything, just never did anything for you. So it gotta be true, right? So everybody you know ain't shit, but you're perfect. That perfection feel real godlike, but not godlike enough to be master. You'll never be master. You can be a god and you will never be master. See, it's weird the way it goes. And this is why I'm saying that Willie Lynch did just such a great job putting this together. He just did. I wish I could construct something just like this to pull us out of this. But what do words mean anymore? Especially if you find out a black guy wrote it, it can't be true. But it's funny. We will rush and watch hood movies. We will rush and read the latest, hood book that's a little trashy. You got drugs, sex, death, rap. Those things we put stock in. I wonder if there's a table somewhere right at this moment that I'm speaking to you that has a couple rich people sitting at it and they're talking about what they're going to do next. I wonder. See, yes, the system is against us. Yes, there are so many social constructs in place that we follow blindly. The question is, if we know these things, why are we still stuck in it? Why are we still stuck in it? Yes, every time we try to raise up and try to do things for our own and try to separate ourselves away from all of the pain, separate ourselves away from everything that made us inferior. When we strove to be great, they burned us to the ground. They burned us to the ground. But see, right now, in time, this is a pivotal point within Willie Lynch's prediction. This is a pivotal point. We can change all of that. I don't know necessarily that we will. They say if you go back in time that you shouldn't change anything, because if you change anything, you can endanger the future. That's what they say. That's science fiction TV is what I watch. The butterfly effect, all that jazz. I wonder, if I could change one thing, what would it be? Would I say that, oh, well, I will stop the ships from coming to Africa, but who would believe you? Who would believe you that this was even going to occur? And if you killed one person, that doesn't mean somebody else wouldn't have took their place. But I'll say to this day, the one single person who's done the most damage to our people just might be Willie Lynch. Just maybe Willie Lynch, because he took a bunch of barbarians and organized them. That's what he did. He took a bunch of people and taught them how to be better and more efficient at what they did. They didn't stop killing slaves, but they implemented his teachings, and it changed the game. It changed the game, but it also changed the course of our history. So maybe if I go back and I just get one shot, maybe I would go back to Willie Lynch. And maybe before he got any notoriety for how he did slaves, maybe before he owned a plantation, maybe that's when you get him. I don't know. Maybe the idea would have died with him, or maybe it might have been a couple of 100 years before somebody else came up with this same plan. But if we would have got those couple 100 years, maybe society, our culture, maybe it would all be different right now. I don't know. Would that be the one shot that would truly change today? Meaning that I would have to leave slavery in place, because there's no one person that you can take out that would stop slavery. Slavery is just part of mankind. It just is. It's a part of mankind's history, human being history, because it wasn't just black people. But the way our culture has been affected by this man's teachings, he got to go. He is the equivalent of what Hitler was to the Jews. Man, you ask them who's their boogeyman, who's their monster. Man, that man single-handedly tried to wipe them out. And the sad part is he succeeded in killing millions. Let's think about that. Shit, I guess in a few more decades, maybe there'll be no more Holocaust survivors, and pretty soon this would just be something written in the history books. Something written in the history books. Just like most people try to view slavery as something in the history books. But can it be in the history books if it never truly ended? Can it be part of our past when it's still very much alive in our present? I mean, lynching just is really killings now. You don't have to be doing much of anything. Man, they said Tulsa, Oklahoma started over a black young man who was, seeing a white young woman. Something as simple as that, with major consequences. I don't know. But I wouldn't go back there and even try to touch that situation, because even if I stopped that young man and said, don't do it, I'm from the future and this is what's going to happen, I'm pretty sure they would have found another reason to burn down Black Wall Street. Something would have happened somewhere. So would I have really changed anything? You got what I'm saying? Yeah. Willie Lynch, he did the damage. He did the maximum amount of damage, because we still feeling those blows today. So my time is almost up here. But buckle up and get ready for this ride that I'm about to take y'all on. I want to remind everybody that on June 19th, from 1 to 4 p.m., Lashes and Cocktails will be at the Fine Arts Center, the Chester Fine Arts Center East, 17 East 7th Street. It starts at 1 p.m. It ends at 4 p.m. This event spotlights small business owners, all female, the movement that they are just together. Man, you come down there, and I'm not going to ask you to support them because you don't support Walmart. You don't support Sears. You don't support Kohl's. You don't support Target. You just go shop. So shit, go fucking shop. Who you give your money to is who you give your power to. Let's empower our community for a change. African Americans, I think they have like they contribute like $1 trillion or some shit. And just our buying power, our purchasing power. That's all 13% of us putting that shit together, really. We just split it up between different places where we spend our money. So, like I said, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., who you give your money to is who you give your power to. You come out here and you purchase from these ladies and you give them power, empower them to grow, and watch what they do. Also, same spot, same evening, 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., it is Night of the Gods. African American men performing poetry, comedy, vocals, just doing what they do, showing you the world through their eyes, through our eyes. Come out and check that out. Come out and help that grow. We need to start sowing back into our community. If you need to advertise, you hit up cmpradio.net. If you got a small business, man, let me tell you something. McDonald's serve 1 billion people a day and they still advertise. So don't think that because your business is small, you don't need to advertise. Get at us. Let's make it happen. So I'm not going to keep talking y'all to death, but what I will tell you is this. Yes, we were bought here and we were robbed of many things. We were forced to accept so many things. We were put in a position to be afraid for our lives, to be afraid for our families' lives. We were raped, murdered, burned. We had so many things that we lived through, and we were given a God to pray to and to ask for forgiveness. We were given a heaven and hell. We were given a way to think. We were given a way to talk. And if we tried to do anything else, it was beaten out of us. You don't speak in your native tongue because you were taught which language is the right language to speak to. You were taught what God to pray to, how to pray, even though we have the knowledge that the King James Version Bible was literally made because he wanted to solidify his position in his kingdom, and he also wanted to squash disputes about the Bible. So, of course, he wrote it the way he wanted it written. And at a point in England, it was against the law to even translate, because the Bible was in Latin. It was against the law to translate it into English, you know what I mean? And it was punishable by death, you know what I mean? But that's neither here nor there. I'm getting over my time. I'm just going to tell y'all this. Y'all stay tuned. Hold on for this ride. We're going to have these conversations because we need to have these conversations. Always find a reason to smile. Always find a reason to laugh. It's too much bullshit going on in this world. And thank you for hanging out with me tonight. Love you.
La 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 la. La 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 la.